So how do we get it to be loud enough for live?
We just talk like she did. So, all right.
You're going to start there, and you've got mine.
Yeah.
So once you get done, you got to give me mine.
Yeah.
Right
There
here.
you go. Okay. So.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for coming. Okay. I'm Dave Defrance. This is Maureen.
Hi.
And we've been with solar ever since 1985, and we've done everything, taken every workshop. We called them classes at that time, and been a lot of places, and are still at it. So recently we did the hike to Santiago, called the Camino, or the Way. And what's it all about? St. James, right? Actually, in Latin, Santiago means St. James. So they renamed a little city in northwest Spain after St. James. And now everybody hikes to it. Why? Okay, so he was beheaded in Jerusalem in 44 AD. And that should have been the end of it, right? But he had some followers. And they rescued his body, and they hauled it up the Atlantic into the Ula River that goes over into Spain, and then by ox cart up to this little known city and buried it in an unmarked grave. So from approximately 44 AD until 800 AD, it sat there. Well, somebody found the grave, and the local bishop said, "That's St. James. We gotta save that. We gotta create a church to him, and all this hype and so forth." So they did, and they renamed the city Santiago. And now, ever since then, ever since the 800s, people have been making the pilgrimage to Santiago, and we'll tell you all about the routes and the hype and all this stuff. Go ahead.
Okay, so we have had this in and out of our bucket list for 10 years. And we kept saying, yeah, no. And then we would do something else. So finally, this year we said, this is the year we're going to do it. And if you decide that you're going to do this hike, you can hike as many as 1,500, 2,000 miles. That isn't what we were looking for. The minimum that you are allowed to hike and be still considered a pilgrim and get your certificate at the end is 100 kilometers. We chose a path that we did 230 miles. And when we did it, we were trying to decide, all right, when do we want to go? Well, I'm big on, I can't take the heat. And so I was big on not wanting rain, not wanting too much heat, because in the summertime, it could, like right now, people are fainting on the trail because it's so hot. It's well over 100. So we decided to go in the last week of April we did 18 days of hiking into May, and we ended up on May 10th. And so we are not going to kill ourselves. We're in our mid and late 70s. So what we decided with our path was how much we were going to hike a day, between 12 and 14 miles a day. And actually, it was pretty flat. It was undulating. And we liked it. We enjoyed it. I will admit, though, that day 2 is a lot different than day 10. After a while, it starts to wear on you. So we were glad to be done when we got done, but we did enjoy ourselves. And it wasn't until the very last day, like the morning when we were leaving that night, that we made our final decisions. We normally don't put it off that long. We thought we would stay at hostels and public albergues. The problem with the public albergues is that they only take you in line in order. So you better be fast, and you better get out early to get in the top of the line so that you make sure that you have one of the beds. And they're usually like bunk beds, and you need earplugs, and they get up in the middle of the night and they want to go pee. And so we thought, maybe not that, because if I don't get my rest, and I wake up easily, he doesn't, but I do. And if I don't get my rest, then I can't really hike. So I said, I can't do that. We've got to do it a different way. So instead we decided on taking a suitcase with us that was extra, because after we were done with the hike, we were going to go on a cruise, and then we went to see the kids in Switzerland. So I didn't want to wear, 2 pairs of shorts and two tops for a cruise. So we took a suitcase extra and had it shipped ahead every day. That made it so we had to do private albergues. I never regretted that. Neither did he, because then we had a private room to sleep in. And I didn't mind if we shared a bathroom, although most of the time we didn't. But you could have either a private bathroom or a shared bathroom. And we did put the suitcase going on ahead. And the other big thing that for us to decide was on our phone. We do consumer cellular, and we have AT&T through consumer cellular. And you can pay $10 a day to have all the calls you want when you're overseas with AT&T. But that adds up at $10 a day for 25 days or so. So instead, we decided that we would just take the bill. I called up, it's 12 cents a minute from here. It's 18 cents a minute from Portugal, or here from Spain, and whatever. And we ended up spending less than $6 extra on our cell phone. So we were really happy with that. Okay.
What happened to our pointer?
It's right here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we finally did it. We pulled it out of the bucket, and we hiked 230 miles in 18 days. So a lot of you may have been considering this, and certainly you all know someone who has done it. We decided to hike from Porto, which is like halfway up the Portuguese coast, and we wanted to do the coastal route, this blue dotted line here. This is the main route that goes right through all of the cities we didn't want to do the urban route, so we took the coastal route. But as you can see, look at all these dots all over here. These are all alternate routes. Some of them are called complementary routes. Some are called
alternate routes.
Literal routes. And
routes.
Let's see, and then there's one we'll talk about later called the
spiritual route.
The spiritual route.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the actually following the route of the body of St. James. And then, so we took the route along the coast and then came in here to Valencia and crossed over to Spain at Tui. And a lot of the canned trips start at Tui because it meets the requirement of going a minimum of 100 kilometers. And you have very defined stops here. So, 12, 14 miles apart with nice accommodations all the way along the line. So that's the route that we took up to Santiago.
And that was my doing because I really wanted to go along the coast. I didn't need to see 1 million people. And in the summertime, it can really get crowded. They have up to 8,000 people a day hiking into Santiago in the summertime. And when we were there in April, it was perfect. We did not have that problem.
Okay, so alternate routes. So we read a lot of blogs on this, and this is one says, when walking from Valencia, make sure you don't take this route, take this route. It's one of these complementary routes. It adds a few miles, but walks along streams, through forests, and stays away from the main route, which is a lot of city traffic with cars and traffic with people. So if you want more of a solitary, you would take the alternate routes whenever you could. Go. So here are our shells. Mm-hmm. The shells mark the way. Yellow arrows mark the way. So these are the typical markings we may have seen along the way. This creative person used all these flower petals and made a sign for us to follow. Go. Or do they? Look at this one. Which way do we go? Okay, so this is one, it says here, complementary. This is the one where you go through the woods and along the little streams. And it's usually a little bit more, but they go to the same place. You might notice on this, not yet.
Sorry.
On this marker, if you can read it, it says 110. So all along the way, we would see these cement markers, and this is the kilometers that we had to go yet till we got to Santiago, till we saw the 0 mile one. Okay, Maureen, you
Now,
want to talk about this?
Yeah, I did. This was our Bible when we were over there. And as you can see, it was not filled in when we left. We had this typed out we typed it out ahead of time, and it would say, you know, what date, how far we were going from this place to this place to that place, and where, if we were going to stay, and we already had our reservation. And with the private albergues, we would call on our phone about 1 or 2 days ahead, because we had to let the suitcase people know where we were staying. And then we had usually an address and a phone number that we could work with, so we knew exactly where we were going. And as you can see, this was the mileage.
How did you book it?
Booking.com. Very easy. And I just said private albergues in Camino. And then I could look through, and for me it was important, so I got air conditioning, because if I get hot, I'm not happy. So instead we looked for private albergues, we looked for a private room. You could get none without a private room, but we looked for a private room. Didn't care about the private bath, but we only didn't have a private bath twice. And then the price point, depending on if you wanted a meal included or not.
Okay, with the plan, here we go. Again, we started from Porto. First thing you do, get your shell. Every pilgrim is carrying a shell. That's how you can tell they're a pilgrim. And the other thing that we had to pick up is this thing called a credential book. So look at it, it's full of stamps. In Portugal,
I'm going to pass this.
we had to get at least 1 stamp a day, and in Spain, at least 2 stamps a day. And what it did is it told the story of where we were, and it was us. And, you know, we didn't take bicycles, we didn't take any other transportation other than on our feet. So when we ended up, they could say, yes, we see that you did this distance, you went through all these places, and then give us their certificate.
Our toughest part was there were so many places. You could get your stamp at restaurants, you could get your stamp at little snack bars, at places that we stayed, at churches. And so you had to say, oh, I've got 4 stamps already today. I'm going to run out of room, so I better back off on how many places I go to stamp.
You need minimum 2 a day? Is that right?
In Spain.
In Spain, and 1 a day in Portugal.
1 a day.
Okay, so the starting point of our hike was the main cathedral in Porto. So again, very ornate, huge building and edifice with lots of outbuildings that surrounded this, but this was where we started off as a pilgrim. So one thing that impressed us is streets and sidewalks out of little blocks. And here they have little blocks and littler blocks. And they were building streets and sidewalks out of these. And so, you know, the stuff that we had to walk on that was, you know, centuries old little blocks, they were like hard to walk on. And still, I mean, the intense labor of doing that, but they were there doing it. They loved their stonework.
And these blocks were like about 4 inches square, and they hurt on your feet. Even if you have really good shoes, they still hurt. Between the boardwalks and the cobblestones, I noticed that they hurt.
That was in Porto?
That one was
Well,
in
yeah,
Porto,
it
but
was all along the way, though.
It was all along.
Throughout Portugal, at least.
When you weren't in the woods, you were walking on cobblestones.
Okay, so the Douro River, and a lot of people have heard of that. It's popular for boat rides and whatnot. Its mouth is at Porto, but the origin of it is way back in the mountains of Spain. So it comes all the way across Spain through Portugal and dumps out here. And you know, the beginning of our walk was along the Douro River to get out to the Atlantic, and then we headed north from there. So why did we select the coastal route? Here's why. It has the ocean. We just walked from our hotel first day to the other side of Porto, and we are along the coast now,
although we have not seen our first Camino sign yet, we know we're here. And so we are on our way. It's going to be beautiful, but boy, is it going to be hot. First couple days were hot.
April 23rd, already warm.
Yeah.
So go early. So we knew this was the right route for us. This was our whole route. The pictures and scenery that we saw for maybe the first 100 miles. It's incredible.
This is where we sat and had, at the first bench, had our breakfast. And I've been to a lot of different restaurants, but I'll tell you, I don't think I've seen any that are any better view than this. The White House in the distance. Just beautiful. This is day 2 of the Camino.
Okay, let's talk a bit about food. Portugal and Spain, they're siesta country. So if you get someplace after 12 o'clock, they might be closed and they don't open again until 3. And if you want to go to a store, you better hit it between like 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock because they close. And Sunday, no, you better have your food. So what we would typically do, we would go to the store almost as soon as we got into town, and we'd pack up things like canned sardines and fruit and crackers and cheese and whatnot, and then we would go have our dinner, go to bed. Next day, we have our breakfast in our pack. We would walk a few miles, and then we would have breakfast, and then start looking for a place for lunch, and then, have dinner when we got into a town. So very attractive walkways, and all along the way they had curiosities and signs for the pilgrims. And this one, a tragedy happened that 152 people died at a sea accident. So they had this memorial plaque right along the path that we followed. And there was a number of informational paths and statues, etc. So along the coast, what do? You have fishing markets, fishing villages. So this particular fish market, we had a heck of a variety, and right across the way from it, associated with this fish market, was a Michelin restaurant. Now, this is like only the second time in my life I've been to a Michelin restaurant. And the seafood chowder was fantastic, but so was the price. But anyhow, we had to do it because we were there. So late April through May, fantastic flower season. Mm-hmm. This was right along the coast where the foliage was quite short, but it was full of yellow and purple flowers everywhere. And as you went more inland, you got the huge flowers. And everywhere in Europe, they love their flowers. So it was just fantastic.
This is day 2. We've been on the trail about 4 hours. And these are frogs. Right off the boardwalk. Cool.
So along the way, we have all these little fishing villages that used to be thriving, and some of them are still in operation. These guys go out like 3 or 4 in the morning with their boats, and right now it's about 10 a.m., and these guys are waiting for the boat to come back in. The boat will come back to the shore here, then there's a tractor that drags them on in over to the market where they sort through the fish and send it on so that it can be fresh, served that same day. So a lot of these are still family affairs, and they're, the old folks are still there working every day at the fishing villages. So what do they catch? We have lobster traps. They also have octopus traps, which is fantastic. There are octopus there. Then there are sardine nets and crab traps. So they catch all of the stuff with traps, and that's what the boats mainly are gathering when they go out in the morning. Because of the sandy area, that's hard walking, so almost the entire length along the ocean, they have boardwalks. So from city to city, and generally these are in fantastic shape. And so it's easy walking along the boardwalks, but some of them, the sands have shifted too much, so we had to do the drunken walk to get through areas like this. And there were 2 areas like that we had. So I mentioned a lot of things for the pilgrims to see along the way so we don't get bored. So the locals set up, different types of artwork, different types of shops. This one is, don't forget to drink or you're going to look like this guy. And when the Moors invaded Spain and Portugal, they brought along the tile industry. So tile in many shapes is very big, and all of these artworks are made out of tile. And it's the whole side of that building too. And one night we stayed at a place called, let's see, where did I lose my place here? The Naval Guest House. And this was our view of the marina from our hotel room at night. So again, very beautiful.
Where was that? What town was that one in?
The Naval Guest House, we have to look at
I'd have to look it up. I'm afraid I don't
we'll have to
remember.
look that one up.
But it was like the 4th or 5th day. But that was a really nice place
I
to
think
stay.
it was in Apua, which was another old fishing village and lumber village. So we mentioned the routes. Here's the littoral route. You take that one, you don't have to go into the interior. You could still stay by the ocean. So
Right.
another option.
And I wasn't ready to give up the coast. I thought, no, I want more water. So I said, oh, look, and we found the littoral route. And I said, let's go on this for a few days, because that was still on the water.
It had these tall reeds and grasses for many miles that line the boardwalks a little bit further off of the shoreline. I may have mentioned earlier how good they are at stonework and like paving the roads and so forth. So some industrious person gathered all of these rocks, almost the same size, some river rocks, same color, lined them up, and this is the walkway into a field. It just, again, everything very attractive, old, historical. Many churches, of course, that's why the pilgrims are doing it. So this one happens to be covered in tile, but many styles of churches, all Catholic, however. So we saw a lot of those along the way. Another church, we went in, we got another stamp. So this is one of the albergues that we stayed at, and it was large enough that they were able to hang their laundry out there. And the outside of it, it was the Antas guest house. And surprisingly, behind that little door, there was a huge garden, a swimming pool, guest rooms, and they provided an omelet dinner for the pilgrims. So it was a great stay. Sandy soil loves potatoes. So they were growing these all over Portugal and Spain. And now they're just getting ready to harvest some of them. They have the baskets all lined up there, ready to get the potatoes. So small farms, but a lot of niche farming. These trails are old. A lot of what we walked on, we're walking where the Romans walked back in, even before BC. So 200 AD, the Romans were there, and they laid out these paths, piled up all these stones, and brought some level of civilization there. And we were following the path of the Romans. I mentioned yellow arrows. Okay, so they did a lot of statues there. Sometimes they're pilgrims, sometimes they're of St. James. So, okay.
And you can see the yellow arrow on his skirt or his cloak near his knee.
Yeah, so we're always looking for that. This one we could not miss. Go that way.
Right. And what we found was we thought we would need all these maps and everything. You don't. The shells that with the yellow lines on it or these yellow arrows were everywhere. Everywhere. We only got lost a couple times, a little bit. And what we would do is we had our phone and we would, you know how you have that blue ping on your phone? So we'd be on a path and, oh, okay, we can see the path. Well, there's this path and this path. Which way is it? And so I'd say, well, hang on. So I'd go like 20 paces and I'd go, no, this isn't it. So I'd come back and we'd go the other way. So you really can't get lost. It was amazing. And I know other people that go, they have maps and books, and we didn't do any of that.
So they go out for the pilgrims. You know, this stone map, I say it's lighter than our paper map. So anyhow, okay. More churches. This one, they had a water fountain for us to refresh at. They had a self-serve stamp post inside here. And
that was at the little table on the left side.
Yeah. And so, again, making us very welcome with all the information and the artwork and so forth for the pilgrims. And this was just before a huge uphill, so that's why they had the water fountain there. Now, I don't know if you've been to Europe, but a lot of their cemeteries are works of art. They take care of them. Look at, there are pictures of the departed. There are things that were important to them in their lives. There's flowers there almost every day, and everything is glittering like it was just brand new. So we had to present that one. So I mentioned the little farms. You know, this couple is just coming back with a bunch of clippings, wood and
Trimmings.
other trimmings from their farm, and hauling it back to wherever their house is. And she waved and smiled to us.
Yeah, they waved. This place was a trip.
Okay, so we mentioned that we shipped our suitcase ahead, and so we had to have an address of the hotel. Well, the hotel didn't open until 6 o'clock at night. They delivered the suitcase typically in between 2 and 3 o'clock every day. So we go to the hotel, it's closed. All right, where's our room? Where's our suitcase? And finally we found somebody that said, oh, I'm staying at the hotel. I think it might be over here at the train station. And the train station had very limited hours too, because they only had 2 trains a day go through there. So we hung around a little bit, and then they finally opened up and we got it. So all was good.
She had it behind the locked door, but we didn't know that.
Now in the guidebook, it says, oh, they've got this hotel, they've got a casino. We thought, wow, big time, right? So here's the restaurant at the casino. And this was
it was like 15
the
feet wide.
focal point of the city. They lined up in the morning waiting for it to open up so they could have breakfast. And the casino was back through here. The door never opened. No. I don't know if there was something illegitimate going on back there, but we never saw the casino.
And we got a huge dinner because there's no place else in town. A huge dinner with drinks. And I think for the both of us, it was €12. So just
okay, so
yeah, it was something.
We got sandwiches, and I thought, I'm going to order some fries. Well, I mentioned potatoes. There was a bowl of fries like this, and I don't know, it's like $3 or €3 or something. It's like we couldn't finish them all.
Yeah,
but
so the thriving metropolis.
And so in the same city, we just missed this storm. It came in after us, and by the time the next morning came, everything was refreshed, and we were off and going again. So from all over the world, this is from Poland here. They leave their marks. So several areas along the hike, there were stones that people carved. A lot of people left little statues, like a famous one was Jesus. And we came across a woman who had a bag full of these little statues of Jesus. She said, everyone should have a little Jesus. Here's one. So we each had a little Jesus until we left it someplace. And another marker, Bon Camino. This is what you say to every other pilgrim that you met along the way. You know, have a good one. And so this is the marker reminding us that we're going to have a good Camino. And
we're
again,
still at the beach.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Various ways of marking the trail. The shell symbol, the yellow arrow, St. James, and this is a bench facing the ocean. So very nice, welcoming to the pilgrims. Hey.
Okay, and they often had private homes would have a chapel of their own that they would have built. So this is a private home, but a well-to-do private home, and they had their own chapel. I thought that was interesting. We stayed at a place called Hotel or Albergue Gwendolyn. It was lovely, and we finally found it. It was up in the hills a bit. And when we found it, they had this bell that you would ring the bell, and then they'd come and open the gate. And what was wonderful about this place is we had the afternoon. We got there about 2. We settled in. We took a shower. We relaxed. And all these people are from around the world. It was great. This was a couple from Spain. They were just getting engaged, and he spoke some English. She did not, so we got to communicate with them. And then these 2 women were sisters, and we saw these 4 people on the trail. We kept hopscotching them back and forth on the trail. So it was really kind of fun to talk to different people, although not a lot of people spoke English. We were out of our element on that.
The guy on the very left, we saw him repeated times too.
This guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were walking through town, and our suitcase was worse for wear. It had been pretty beaten up from other trips that we had taken. And it was one of those Expando suitcases where you have a zipper to make it bigger. Well, the Expando ripped the zipper part. And so we had to get through the rest of the trip. We said, what are we going to do? So we went to this flea market, and we're looking all around at the flea market. Thank goodness they sold us a strap for our suitcase so we could move on from there, which was great. But my favorite thing at this flea market was they had olive oil, 5 liters for €15. I tried to convince him. I thought we should get it, but he didn't want to carry it. So we didn't bring it back. So then we finally got to Spain, and that was one of the first times that we hit rain. And just before the border, we're almost at the border, we're walking through the town, and we could hear the thunder and the lightning. So what we did was we ducked into a little restaurant and sat down, had some breakfast, and then we said, well, okay, this isn't letting up. I guess we got to go. So we went ahead and put all of our rain gear on. And I don't know if you're familiar with the term dry ducks, but they're like paper laminated, but they're waterproof. But they have no pockets. So I wanted my regular jacket because I want to have pockets. So, and as we left and we got into Spain, again, they had beautiful trails with draping trees. It was just lovely when you were able to get into the woods. I really enjoyed that part.
We were walking through the woods, and I hear the sound of bagpipes.
Isn't that eerie?
Scottish girls. You guys walked far to Ireland.
Quick, too.
So Scotland.
I noticed on some of your stamps you had, they were kind of Celtic themed and Spanish songs. What was the connection there?
There's a lot of Irish and a lot of Scottish in the area. So, okay. Next. Okay, and this is another carving of St. James. And this was a huge stone edifice, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 feet tall. And we found those often on our way. And I just loved walking through stuff like this, the quietness of the woods. That was my Camino. And I thought I would love the ocean the best. And I have to say it was a split, because when we did get off the ocean, then if we took the complimentary trails, not the regular trails, out of the industrial areas and into the woods, it was just so peaceful and so beautiful. We loved it.
Okay, one place we came out of the woods and we had to cross the road to get back into the woods. And right at this junction of roads was like the signpost for the local community.
Right.
All those little flyers here, that's announcing what are things happening. And then they had, several local artists display their wear there. I'm pretty sure that that is supposed to be St. James, because he's always depicted with a staff that he's walking with. And then we had, some other artwork there as well. And again, there's the arrow.
Here.
Let's go.
And here. Yeah. So we got off of there. We got out of that woods, went back into the woods, got out of the woods, had to go through a tunnel. And I said, I don't know if we're going to see. And I go, never mind, it's right there. And we could see exactly where to go. These yellow arrows were everywhere.
So again, the artwork for the pilgrims, they really set things up for us.
And here they had, Bone Camino, and even the Coca-Cola, the old Coca-Cola plant. It was deserted by then, but they had stuff for the pilgrims as well. Because again, this dated back, to before Christ. Okay, this guy was so nice. He was out working his garden, so I called him and I said, "How you doing?" "Oh, hello." He was very friendly, and we just loved that the people. This was in Spain, and the people there were very friendly, and he was quite content working on his arbors. Okay, then finally we walked inland to the main trail. What a change. We didn't have to look for arrows anymore. All we did was look for the backpack ahead of us. So this was very typical with lots of people. Now, the good part of that is if you want to meet up with people and talk to them, that's great. And nobody goes the same speed, nobody goes the same amount the same days, but except he and I, of course. But
we were the slowest, so we were always looking at these guys so we could just follow them.
Yeah, we were. But we were also older than a lot of people on the trail. Okay. Mountain bikers, only about 5%. And we actually talked about, do we want to do mountain biking instead? The problem that we saw with the mountain biking is you get through one day and you'll never see those people again because they're all walking. So you can't, not that we made best friends with people, but that you didn't meet up with them again and again. And I said, I think I'd really rather walk it. And he felt the same way. And we stopped walking through this little village. I go, look over here. And I walked like down a side street, and here were these beautiful aqueducts, the Roman aqueducts, which I loved. And this guy, he's actually, again, small farms and small farm equipment. He's got a rake in his hand, and he's got it like this, and he's holding down the hay, and he's driving with the other hand. This was one of my favorite snacks. We went 2 or 3 miles, and then we stopped for breakfast. And we saw some other people from that other albergue at this place. They go, "How'd you get here so fast?" I go, "Oh, hey, I was here for the strawberries." This was a strawberry croissant with enough whipped cream to be labeled decadent. It was fabulous. And so 2 other women came, "Where did you get that?" And I go, "I'm sorry, I have the last one."
And they love their bread. So just about everything, every meal is bread.
Bread. We're not
So,
quite used to that much bread.
Pizza, croissants, everything, bread.
Yeah.
So.
And here we stopped for a rest here. This had been after a bit of an uphill. So we stopped for a rest by the water and just took our time and took some pictures and then follow on the path of the yellow arrow. And what I loved is these people were so proud of where they lived. They had older homes, but they were all stone. And look at how they decorated with flowers. And they were out there every day watering them. They had beautiful gardens and beautiful flowers at their homes. And this is when we were walking through the towns instead of the woods. Now, went back into the woods. This guy was a hoot. He spoke Spanish, and we'll play that in a minute. But what he was doing was he was making my stamp right there. That's my passport or my credential. And I don't know, it's still being passed around somewhere. And it has 2 places where we got a wax stamp instead of the old-fashioned regular type of stamp. And that was this green and gold one that we had right here. And it was just lovely to see him make it. Go ahead.
Kilometers after the chapel which is official stone. In the left is complementary, the more beautiful way. Okay, is in the forest. The right no, is in the cars.
After the chapel.
After the chapel, this chapel, Santa Marta.
Okay.
So what he was saying is after the chapel, take the complimentary way. It's much more beautiful instead of industrialized. But you can see it's kind of hard to understand.
Was there a charge for the stamps or a donation?
They all say
A donation.
you donate, but you better leave some. I paid €5 for that. And to me, it was worth it because it was so unique of a stamp. But the other stamps, the regular stamps, those are for the wax ones. The regular stamps, no. There's no charge. You just say, will you stamp my credential? And they say, of course. So, I thought this was just a cool picture. Dave was walking down this windy road and there were horses in the field. Okay. And through this one area, it was like a city park on our way back into the woods. And this was made out of stone. Everything was made out of stone there. And these were all handwritten, hand painted. I don't know what they say, but they were in Spanish. And then this was a seat on the other side to take a break in the woods or in the park. Okay. Everywhere we went, you did not have to worry about drinking water. Everywhere was safe. Even though you're in the middle of the town, this is a lot of times what the townspeople have their water off of. So in Europe in general, this was Spain, but in Europe in general, it's safe to drink the water. Okay. And this is an example of what the arbors look like. They were all over. They grow a lot of grapes. They have a lot of wine. And these posts are all made of stone. You'd think they were wood, but they're not. They're stone.
So they're very good with stonework. They have skinny posts like that. They have huge slabs, and I wonder how the heck they move them, but they quarry them and put them all over the place.
And this actually says Via Romana. That's a true Roman road number 19. And what they do is they, now, more modern days, they build their stones and they have the cobblestones built up, but they just build on top of the old road, on top of the old road, on top of the old road. And then in this one town, we did find an original Roman bath. It was quite hot. It was like 104 degrees. I want you to notice one old geezer and then think of how old we are and think of how old these people are. We really did. We were quite proud of ourselves for being able to do as well as we did with our age. Next. I fell in love with their salads. And I didn't think I would, because the first time I said, okay, yeah, well, do you have carrots? No. Okay, do you have cucumbers? No. I go, what do you have? Tomato and lettuce. That's it. But they have these purple tomatoes. Oh my word. Mary Winkler grows those purple tomatoes, and I have gotten a couple from her. And these purple tomatoes are so flavorful. And then you just have olive oil and vinegar or olive oil and balsamic on it. And I fell in love with the salads. Next. And this was one evening we crossed this bridge and we went over to our dinner and kind of walked around their park. But it was just such a beautiful area. And this was another route that they have offered called the spiritual route. And as Dave was saying earlier, they had wanted to take the body of St. James up this river to here all the way to Padrón. Well, I really wanted to take this river ride, but the problem was, here's where the trail was. And in order to go on to the spiritual route, you had to climb a 2,000-foot mountain, about 2,300 feet, and then down to here, and then you get the ride over. Well, he's had open heart surgery, and he just cannot climb to 2,300 feet. Doctor says no. So I said, but I don't want to miss this. So we figured out another way. Instead, we walked all the way to Pontevedra. Then we walked off of there and went to this monastery. That was a great stop. We are so glad we did that. Then we walked back into Padrón. It was off of Padrón, the monastery. Then we came back to Pontevedra after staying at the monastery, caught a bus all the way to Villanova de Arosa, stayed the night, had fabulous calamari right there on the water. Then the next day got on the boat, and we got to take the boat ride up back to Padrón where we had left off, so we never really broke our path of what we were walking.
We've been trekking off the Camino to find the monasterio, and we heard that you can get a pilgrim dinner, a pilgrim breakfast, and accommodations for the night for a donation. And people before us from Solar went and had a great time. They said it was wonderful. So we're trying to find it. We're about 3 miles off the trail. We think we've got it now. We're crossing this bridge here, and then we believe it's a little bit more to our left. So soon we'll be in line, hopefully in enough time to get into for the night.
And we were worried because this is one of those,
Near Padrón.
this is where you had to be there and be in line fast enough. Well, we hoofed it, and we were number 7 and 8. Our poles are right there. So we were fine, but we didn't know for sure. And we had even called a couple weeks before and talked to Father Joseph to find out. And he goes, you're okay, you come. So I still didn't believe him. So we still hoofed it really quickly, but it was a wonderful experience to stay at a monastery. And this monastery was actually a convent, monastery within a convent. And it was called San Franciscano, and it was a monastery inside the convent. And this whole area is where St. Francis of Assisi lived and preached. That we had a nice tour. They gave us a 2-hour tour of the convent / church, the catacombs, the whole 9 yards. And the church was from 1684 when it started. And so they gave us a tour, and what they do, which I thought was pretty cool, they had a whole group of us. He'd say a whole bunch of stuff in Spanish, and then he'd push his phone, and then it said the whole thing in English. It was great. Okay, this was our bed. Our only time we had a bunk bed, and I slept on top, and we had a curtain for the door, and it was perfect. Here was where we had our pilgrim dinner, and we were really looking forward to this because this is when you meet other people. How many people spoke English?
4.
We were 2 of the 4.
2 of the 4.
Yeah. So there was a couple from New Zealand, and then everybody else spoke Spanish or Italian. And so this is where we had, I was sitting here, so I took the picture, and here's where we had all the group from our tour that came that night that stayed at the monastery.
What did we have? Do you remember?
I'm sorry?
What did we have for dinner?
Oh, it was a very simple dinner. It was bread, salad, and lentil soup. That's it. So if you were hungry, bring a snack. And you asked how much it cost. It was a donation, but we figured they put us up for the night and they gave us a meal. So I think we ended up paying like,
I don't know, like
40
euro something.
per person, something like that, because we figured for the hotel and the meal. So we figured that was fair. And here's good old Father Joseph. And there was a mass that they had after all that, but before dinner.
After
dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and at the end of the mass, they had Father said, "Come up here, David," and had him read a poem that you're going to see at the end of our presentation. So then after that, the next morning, we walked back to Padrón, took the bus to Villanova and then stayed the night. And this was a beautiful scene that after we had our dinner with fantastic calamari, and we walked along the boardwalk and had that as our view.
This was after Padron?
Yes, this was after Padron, the day after Padron, and walked back into Padron. And this was the boat that we took following the path of St. James up the river. Next. And when they were doing that along the way, they would have these crosses. This is the only one that had 3 crosses. And I didn't quite understand what the crosses were all about, other than it stopped places where they stopped with the body.
Just symbolism of the Catholic faith.
So that, and then we went up the Ula River to follow the path. Then,
Here we are walking.
Yeah.
We have about 5 miles left. It's 10 o'clock, and I don't know if you can hear the church bells in the distance.
we could.
Okay, this was our last day. He was walking about 4 miles an hour, and we walked like 3.5, of the fastest we've ever walked, because we wanted to get there by noon.
How many miles did you do that?
That day we did a total of 10 miles, but we were in the woods and I said, honey, I really want to go to the pilgrim mass. He said, what? And that mass started at noon. And so we had left at like 6 or 7 in the morning, but we hoofed it fast. We were really worn out by the time we got there because I wanted to get there in time. That once a week on Sundays, or is it once a month, they have the pilgrim mass. And
Once a week, every Sunday.
Okay, and we were pilgrims, and I want to make sure we went to the pilgrim mass. Okay.
We are now standing in line in order to get to new mass. We hooked it to 7, 8 miles. Now that we're here, this is the line. And I don't think we're going to get in after all this. So we shall see.
So when you are a long-term hiker like we are, other people give you your hiker name. My hiker name is Chaser, and I'm known for that. I'm going to chase things down like a dog with a bone. So I thought, I'm getting into this mess. So we had been told, and it had a big sign there that said, no backpacks in church. So we had already been told that. So we went to a little jewelry store who charged us €6 each, of course, to hold our bags so then we could get into church. So I said, you stay here, keep our spot in line. I trotted up to the head guy, and it was a security that they were looking through people's purses. And I said, sir, we really want to get in, and we have been walking, and we're old. And we have been walking for hours to get here, and we've just walked 10 miles to try and get here in time for the mass. And he goes, then where's your pack? And I go, the pack? The pack we took, your sign right there says we have to take it somewhere and store it. So we took it to the jewelry store down underneath that other door, and we had, and they have us store it there. And he goes, well, if that's truly what you did, you'd have a receipt. I go, receipt? And I get my fanny pack out, and I said, here's my receipt. And he looks at me and goes, you're in. And I go, yes. I go, but I got to go get my husband. He goes, okay, it's getting late. So I go get my husband. I said, come on, we're in. And there was another couple right behind us that had done the same thing, but they had walked the Francais, so they had done 1,000 miles. And so I said, here's what you do. And get rid of these packs, go to the jewelry store, blah, 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 blah. And they saw us afterwards. They said we got in. And we did get in, but there were no seats left. And we had just walked 10 miles, and we were on stone floors. Oh, my word. It was so bad that halfway through the mass, I had to sit down on the floor. My legs couldn't take it.
Now, you would think the pilgrim mass would be reserved for pilgrims, but you got all these tourists going through Santiago, and they can get there at 6 o'clock in the morning if they want.
And stand in that line.
They took all the spots in the church, and us pilgrims got standing room only.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Did Mo need a receipt for you to prove that?
I was nice and let him in. So this is an example. This was actually after the mass was over, because they said no pictures during mass. So, and there were people that were regulars that left after the mass. And I thought, oh my gosh, the people that were turned away, because at the end of the mass, what they have is they have this giant, it's a process in the Catholic Church. They have a giant crucible, and it holds incense, and they light the incense, And you've probably seen in Catholic churches where they'll go around like this. And there's a bit of incense that comes out. And it's on a chain, and it's a metal, what's it called again?
It's called a thurible.
Thurible, okay. This is the thurible for this place. It's probably stood about this tall. And over here, you've got 4 monks.
I think it weighs 118 pounds.
Is it 118 pounds? And they have to pull and raise that up in the air. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is one of the highlights of every pilgrim that's made it there on Sunday. So this is what goes on.
So it's after church, after Mass, so now all the phones come out. And they're lighting the thurible, and they're lighting the incense. And there they pull it down, and then it starts to wave. And now
There we go, like a
Puts it
kid
on.
on a swing.
yeah, like a kid on a swing. And the good Lord was with us because we were right in the right place to get this movie. Other people were all over. And the monks pull it down, and up it goes, and then it comes swinging at us. Okay, they get the idea. And then we went outside and got our picture taken. Here we are at the end, in front of the cathedral in Santiago. We have our shells, which he wore his around his neck. Mine's right there. And you carry that shell. You get it at the pilgrim office in the very beginning, along with your credentials. And we had a little thing they gave us too, with a yellow arrow. And we had made it. And this was, if we look a little red in the cheeks, because we had just walked the 10 miles.
Is that the church that the doorway is worn by the pilgrim's fingers?
I've never heard that. I don't know that.
The steps are quite worn,
The steps have,
but not, I didn't notice the doors.
right.
So here we are. Now that we all did this, I know you guys want to do all this, so keep this in mind. Have a buen camino, and let's read this all together here. May the love
be the
be the light of hope in your path. May peace abound in your heart. May goodness be your mark in life. May your faith strengthen you in the mystery of life. When the moment comes for you to reach your goal, may love embrace you eternally. Be happy and make others happy.
And that's what Father
Joseph.
had him read at the Mass. So we have time for a few questions, and then we're finished. Okay, any questions? Yes, way back there.
Explain how much was it to have your bags forwarded all the time?
It depends on the company.